Hey guys, I'm Grace Torie, and you're listening to That Girl, the podcast. Grab a beverage of choice and settle in because the new episode is starting now. Hey guys, what's up? It's your girl Grace Torie, and I am back with a whole new podcast episode. Today's episode, we are going to be talking about something that I have dealt with for a very long time, and I think I might have done an episode on this, but I wanted to research it and kind of give you answers that aren't just my experience, but answers that I've collectively found online. So today we are going to be talking about burnout. What is it? What are symptoms of burnout? Who more likely is to have burnout, and ways to not only cope with it after you have it, but ways to avoid it. So before we do that, of course, I have to do my quick little 10-second life update. We went to Keeneland, which is our racetrack. They have their October meet going on, so we saw my family and it was good to go. It was good weather for it. My allergies are kind of now. It was not great for that, but it was good weather. It wasn't too hot. We walked a lot, so got my steps in. But yeah, overall it was a good time. It was a good Sunday afternoon. Then we ran some errands. That wasn't as fun, but we got some stuff done that we needed to do. And here we are. So it was a good Sunday. It was also my first full week of work, so I got to experience a work week that hasn't been impacted by COVID. I usually am a remote worker, but now I jumped into it and was in the office, and it was crazy. I am definitely exhausted. I'm feeling slightly overwhelmed as I make the transition and try and figure out how I'm gonna fit everything into my life, and budgeting and some financial stuff we have going on. So it's a lot. I think my anxiety is a little bit higher than I need it to be right now, but we are figuring it out. And then, I mean, it's just a transition period, so in a month from now, none of this will matter and we'll have it all figured out. But you know, let's see. Overall, it was a good week at work though. I really enjoyed it. I had fun at my job. I was doing really well, so I'm excited to see where that goes and continues. Last little thing, I do want to say sorry if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anything but YouTube. I have been late with my episodes, and it's the platform that I'm using. They got bought by Spotify, and I was so excited because I thought it would be better quality, but literally ever since they were bought, it's been bad. I don't know, it takes it 2 days to upload and all that, so I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna get around that and get my episodes up on time, because I used to upload them the day of, and now I guess I'm gonna have to start doing everything 3 days earlier to make sure that it's uploaded in time. And I thought it was just a one-time thing, but it's happened 3 times now, so that's why. I don't know if it was both of them. Yeah, it was literally both of my episodes last week were late, literally because I was fighting with the platform. So hopefully moving forward we won't have that issue anymore, fingers crossed. But if it's late, I promise you I'm doing everything I can. It's just the platform acting up and not posting it, so I am working to get that resolved. But that's it that I have for my update, so let's go ahead and jump on into the episode. So I have a little definition that I wrote down, and then I added some stuff to the end that I found on a psychological website that had some peer-reviewed articles. So basically the definition of burnout is a psychological syndrome emerging as a prolonged response to chronic interpersonal stressors on the job. And then I added, as well as if you're at school, if you're doing a specific hobby or things like that, because I know they can produce burnout, and I don't want to not include anyone, because the burnout I'm currently experiencing and working through is from college, and that wasn't technically a job, but it was a hard thing and it definitely caused burnout. So definitely didn't want to leave anybody out. But some symptoms of burnout, if you feel like you might be experiencing burnout, or you need a reason that you shouldn't experience burnout and you should take care of yourself, because I kept thinking burnout, it's not the end of the world. It's actually a big deal. The more I researched it, the more I found out it was a lot, and it's actually considered a form of a trauma response. Crazy. But the symptoms are, as well as the symptom, or as well as signs of burnout, is reduced performance and productivity. That was a really big one. Also anxiety, detachment from everyone, feeling listless or like you don't know what to do. You have a low mood or negative attitude. You have difficulty concentrating. That was a huge one for me and still is. You have a lack of creativity. That was another huge one for me. Fatigue, headache, or muscle aches are big physical symptoms that you can have. Getting sick often is another one, like your immune system not being as strong. Feeling overwhelmed easily, that was and always is something big for me. And lastly, neglecting your own needs, so not practicing self-care, not feeling like it's important, anything like that. Those are all big symptoms that you can have when you're experiencing burnout. So another thing about burnout that I didn't realize that is actually crazy is the quickest that you can get rid of burnout and get out of it and get back into your typical schedule is 11 weeks. And then it can last several years if you don't really take the proper steps to get out of it. The most common that people tend to experience is a year though. So that's still a really long time, like a whole year of being burnt out of something that you have to do. If it's a job or like you're in school and you're burnt out for the last year, like that's insane. So all that to be said, I am going to be talking about ways to avoid burnout, and if you already have burnout, ways to kind of heal burnout. And I do want to mention, if you see any of those symptoms and you think that someone you know may be experiencing burnout, you can also hear about all these different ways to alleviate it, and definitely encourage them to do that, because I know that we're in a society, especially if you're in the United States, where we are taught that your whole worth is put on your success and what you have achieved, but that's not necessarily true. Like burnout is so common here because we're taught that how much we can accomplish is the only thing that matters, and that's just not healthy at all. So if you know someone who is experiencing burnout, definitely talk to them and let them know that it's okay, it's normal, and it's important that you practice these things that I'm going to talk about to keep it from happening. Life isn't about just accomplishing as much as you possibly can and being in a constant work state so that you can be so successful and, you know, you feel worthy of what people think of you or whatever. Like you have this sense of worthiness attached to it. It's important that you also do these things. Like that's what life's about. You want to actually enjoy your life and not just spend it trying to be worthy of everyone's acceptance or whatever that thing is that is pushing you to work harder and harder and not take the rest you need. So that being said, here are all of the ways that I have found through research as well as my own experience that can help you avoid burnout as well as get rid of it once you have it. So the first one is get sleep. Sleep is the be all end all for anything. If you are feeling down, if you feel sick, if you aren't having a 10 out of 10 time on earth right now, get sleep, and you may find that your problems kind of alleviate. They may not go away completely, but you'll definitely see a huge improvement if you get more sleep. Drink lots of water. I was listening to a podcast, I can't remember which one it was, but I didn't realize how important it was to drink water all day, and she was talking about how if she didn't drink water, not just in the morning, but kept drinking it, she would feel fatigue in the afternoon, and a lot of her friends would feel burnt out in the afternoon, and she'd ask them if they drink any water, and they'd be like, no, not today. And I didn't really think about that because I tend to get really burnt out in the afternoons and really tired and low energy, and it's because I drink water in the morning. You know, I have my cup in the morning when I first wake up, and then I kind of get caught up doing things and making sure everything's running smoothly and forget to drink more water. So make sure you're drinking lots of water throughout the day. A big one that people kind of don't think about is take breaks. The first way that you can do this is make sure you're taking your lunch. If you're working or you're in college or whatever, make sure you're taking time to eat lunch. Take an hour to do that. I know that the concept of working through lunch is kind of glorified and makes you sound like you are working harder than everybody else and you're gonna achieve more and you're taking that extra initiative, but in the long run you're gonna burn yourself out and you're not gonna be as efficient as you would have been if you would have just taken the lunch. So take the lunch. I promise you, you'll be fine. Another thing is take breaks by making time for other things. If you're someone like me and now I work from 8 to 5 and then I have my side hustle, which is my podcast, from 5 to 9 or whatever, it's really hard for me to take time to do things like hang out with friends, go see my horse, take my dogs for a walk, anything like that, because I'm so focused on these two things, and that is not great. It's important that you take time to work out, exercise, eat, and actually be present, and be present in any situation that you're in. If you are going out with friends, like join a kickball league with your friends or do something like that. If you are doing those things, it's just as important to be present and not be checking your phone or thinking about all of the things you have to do. That is a huge thing for me, is I go do these things and I hang out with my friends, but the whole time I'm mentally freaking out about all the things I need to do and the posts I need to make for the podcast and the thing I need to do at work tomorrow, and I don't want to forget it, and I need to make a to-do list, and I'm gonna go grab a napkin at the restaurant we're at so I can write all this down. Like, don't do that. You need to be present in the moment, or you're not gonna recharge and you're not using that time efficiently. You're not actually not healing anything. You're gonna be just as burnt out. So make sure that you're making time for other things like friends, family, a hobby that you love, a sport that you love, rest, food, replenishment. Self-care is a huge one. I'll get into that, but making sure that you are practicing self-care is huge. I know that taking time for yourself, we're taught that that's selfish and we shouldn't do that, and that's wrong. But if you don't do that, if you're not practicing self-care and showering and whatever self-care means to you, I've done so many episodes on that, and if you want to check out any of those, they are on my official YouTube as well as my Spotify and everything. Just scroll through my episodes. But if you're not practicing self-care, whatever form you want to practice that day, then you are gonna be burnt out because you are not replenishing yourself. So another thing that is super important is setting boundaries. One for me is I don't work after 5, and I try not to work on the podcast after 7 unless I possibly have to, because if I am not burnt out and I'm being efficient with my time and I'm working really hard and productive, I can get everything done in 2 hours, an hour and a half. And I don't need to be doing work. I did work from 8 to 5. There's absolutely no reason that I should be doing anything for work after 5, because then I'm not going to be the best, most productive worker the next day. Your whole life should not revolve around work. You should work so that you can have a great life. But in my opinion, I don't think that we should see work as our entire world. It's a means so that we can do what we want to do. And if you do something where your work is your purpose and your passion and your life, and you know, something where like you're a podcaster and you're traveling constantly and it is a 24/7 thing, like you're an entrepreneur, yeah, that's great, but you should still make time for other things so that you can show up as your best self for that. But I also think it's okay to work so that you can make money to do other things. But if you are doing that, I don't think that that should be something that you're constantly thinking about after 5. I don't know if that makes sense, but it shouldn't be something you're stressing about. You have your time for work, you have your time for other things, and you shouldn't be intermixing them. And like I said, if you are being efficient and you are being productive and you are on top of your game, you can get everything done in half the time. So if you have a side hustle like me, try to set those boundaries so that you can say, from this time to this time, I'm gonna be doing this. And then outside of that, I'm not allowed to think about it, I'm not allowed to talk about it, I'm not allowed to be anxious. And give yourself a mental diet where you say, at this time, I'm not allowed to do this. And in addition to that, set boundaries and say, I can't take on this project because I already have these, or I can't do this because I already have these. Be clear about what you can and can't do, and don't give yourself too much space or overcommit to things. Like, don't overcommit. Don't say that you can do something and you can't. Be clear about what you can and can't do, and say no, because it's so much better to say, I'm sorry, I have too much on my plate this week, I can't do this, than to say yes, and then the deadline approaches and you either don't give something as good as it could be, don't do it, and then you have to apologize, or you end up throwing it on somebody else last minute. Like, just say no from the get-go, and it'll honestly be so much better. Setting boundaries is so important. A big thing is to self-reflect as well. One way that you can do this is to do a job analysis or a college work analysis, or whatever you want to call it, where you realign with your goals, your objectives, reset your boundaries, look at everything that you're working on, and if it's not a priority to you, either give it away or not put as much emphasis on it. It's just a time to look at everything that you have and realign with what you're looking for. And along with that, it's really important to identify and remove the obstacles and stressors that you have. So for example, you have a project at work that is the actual reason why you have burnout. You're not burnt out on your job, but you're burnt out on this one project. Talk to your boss and say, hey, can so-and-so take over temporarily or permanently? What is the deadline? And then don't focus on it for a day or two or a week so that you can have some new ideas. Give yourself some space from it. Identify those obstacles or those stressors that are the real cause of your burnout and alleviate them as much as possible. Also, make sure that you are eating a balanced and healthy diet. This is something that I have really noticed lately, because when you're eating a balanced and healthy diet, you have a lot more energy, and not only that, you have a much higher brain function. I've noticed my brain function is so poor lately, and I've been a lot slower, I've been dull, and I am trying to get back on top of eating a healthy and balanced diet for this reason, because I don't want to end up having burnout. I want to be more efficient, and you just can't do that if you're not eating correctly. I talked about this earlier, but make sure that you are asking for help. Are you taking on too much? Ask for help even if you've already taken on a project and you think that you could do it and it's too much. If you need help at home, for example, you need help walking your dog from your significant other, your best friend, your roommate, like if there is something that you can't do, be okay with asking for help and having someone help you with it. Even if it's something as simple as taking your car to get gas and you can't do it, and you ask your boyfriend or girlfriend if they can do it for you and you Venmo them. Like, handing off things on your plate so that it's at a reasonable place where you don't feel so overwhelmed. If you're someone you know is also experiencing burnout, maybe don't ask them, but it's really important to have a support network where you can ask multiple people. So the next thing I have on my list is to actually find a support network. I had one, and then everyone kind of moved away, like I mentioned, and my immediate support network has definitely dwindled in Lexington. I have like my family and stuff, but they don't live here. So I'm working on building that back up. But once you have someone that you can even just rant to and say that you're feeling overwhelmed, and you know, give them the opportunity to take on more, it's so important. Having a support network at work that you can kind of talk to and navigate things that you may feel overwhelmed about with, having friends that you can go to, anyone, having multiple support networks is what I recommend. A huge thing, how to avoid burnout, honestly, a big part of this is having time and stress management. Time management so that you are able to take breaks and do things that you may not, you know, that aren't directly related to work or school or whatever, those things that make you happy. Have self-care, make time for food, make time to go to the gym. Time management is everything there. And then also stress management. Know how to handle your stress, know what calms you down, whether that's meditation, working out, whatever. Know signs that you are feeling more stressed than usual. Know ways to alleviate it, like exercise or meditation, like I mentioned. Have systems implemented into your routine where you are automatically alleviating stress by going to the gym or meditating twice a day, things like that. Be proactive so that you are managing your stress before you even get it, so you feel better. Also, that time management, getting a routine is so important. Create a routine that you can follow and you will be able to do it all. It's just a matter of creating that routine and sticking to it, that daily goals that you're gonna follow, and divvy it out. It's okay to be down to the hour of what you're going to be doing day by day throughout the day, and you'll actually feel better because you'll feel in control of your day, which is so important. I know a lot of times on the podcast I say, wow, life is lifing me, or I'm like really lifing life right now, and it's just a saying that I made up because sometimes I feel like I'm in control of life, and then sometimes I feel like life is really just taking a hold of me and I'm kind of just here trying to waver the storm. And I know that when I feel like I'm in control of the situation, I'm in control of life, I feel so much better. And I think that that's a thing that everybody feels. So if you also feel that way and you feel better when you're in control of life, a great way to do that is to have time management, get a planner, sort it all out and know that it's okay if things pop up and you can't follow that routine exactly, but have a daily routine that you follow as much as possible anyway. A big way to avoid burnout also is, and also kind of work your way through it, is have a why. Everyone says that and then everyone rolls their eyes. What is a why? There's two ways that you can have a why. Your why is why you are doing what you're doing, whether that's school or work or a hobby or whatever. Usually that's family or friends, or you have a dog that you need to feed and love and you want to go home to it every night. There's the why is, you know, I'm getting my college degree so that I can support myself and have that dream car I've always wanted. I go to work every day so that I can support my family and my kids can go to school. Whatever that why is, there's that first portion, and then the second portion of having a why is that goal in mind. So I'm working so hard because I want that promotion and I can see that promotion and that's propelling me forward. Or like I mentioned, I want to buy a new car, so I'm saving up money and working so hard allows me to do that. There are two different whys. So make sure that you have your whys figured out and you are reminding yourself when you feel like what you're doing is pointless or not worth it, or it begins to feel unnecessary or you kind of feel lost. Another one, and I preach this all the time, and it's funny because I was looking up different symptoms and this popped up multiple times and I was like, okay, I preach it all the time, so I'm glad that someone else does, is disconnect from your technology. So if you're on your phone all the time, it can actually be leading to burnout. You get overstimulated when you're constantly taking in information. So it's important to take a second to get away from it, especially before bed. That is the most important time. Make sure that you are winding down after a certain time. You're not on your phone. I recommend not even watching TV. I would go to reading a book, but your phone is more important than TV, I would say. Some people like sleep with the TV on and stuff, and that's, you know, your prerogative, but definitely your phone is, you know, you don't need to have it at 10 or 11 o'clock at night. You can text someone back tomorrow. I get having it next to you in case of emergency or an alarm or whatever, but definitely set like I have a wind down set on my phone, and at, I think it's 9:45, it kind of goes into sleep mode and I can't even get on it. Do I turn it off sometimes? Yeah, but it's still there and I try to use it, and it kind of reminds me not to get on my phone as much as possible. Also, be mindful. This goes into self-reflection. This goes into meditation to avoid stress management, all the different ways. Be mindful about what you're doing. Know what you're doing. Be intentional about what your purpose is behind that, and understand like the priorities that you have. Just go into everything understanding exactly why you're doing it, what your plan is, and be mindful about how it's impacting you. Also, not only should you be taking breaks and have time for everything, but you should also take vacations. This is something I'm so bad about. I haven't taken a vacation, like a real genuine vacation, in probably 2 years, and I want to go on vacation so bad. I'm actually dying low-key because I haven't been on one in so long, and they're so important. They allow you a prolonged amount of time to just rest and get yourself back on track and not think about, and you're just enjoying yourself. I feel like people look at vacation like you're vain if you go on one, or it's selfish, or it's a luxury, but it can be really inexpensive, and it's super important for your self-care, and it really does reduce burnout. Like if you have PTO, take all of your PTO days. It doesn't matter if you have 2, just go on a short vacation. Like take some time off, take all of your PTO by the end of the year. I promise you, it's so helpful and it reduces burnout. Another important thing that is really simple and really does make a difference is mix things up if they're not working. This can be as simple as taking lunch at a different time, whether that's earlier or later, changing your schedule up so that you're checking emails in the morning, doing calls in the afternoon, whatever works best for you. When you feel like you have the most clarity and brain function, align the tasks with that. Just mix things up so that you are the most productive and you feel best with the schedule. If it's not working, that's fine, switch it up. You don't have to wait until a certain time or a certain deadline. If you want to change something, you don't have to wait to a New Year's resolution. Make that change right now. No one's telling you you can't, I promise. And if they are, they may not be the best influence on you. Change is okay, I promise. Another one is so important. I kind of talked about this already, but don't live for the weekend. You should live every day. You shouldn't be hating 5 days a week and loving 2 days a week. If you hate your job that much, get a different job. I promise you can find a job you love that pays you enough, and you don't have to live for the weekend. You can be excited to wake up every day. If you're living for the weekend, you're doing it wrong. I'm sorry. But that is also a big way to cause burnout, is if you hate 5 days a week, love 2 days a week, and you are just constantly waiting for the weekend and hating your everyday schedule. Not even hating, just like not enjoying it. Like, you should enjoy every single day. This one is kind of obvious, but some of us need to hear it, including myself. Don't work excessive hours. If you're working a crazy amount, I promise you, you are not going to be, you may feel like you are working harder than the average person. You're gonna get that promotion, or you're gonna get to your business starting faster, or you're gonna get to, you know, you're gonna get to where you're trying to go first and reach that goal quicker, but you're actually not, because you're gonna burn out, or you're not gonna be as effective, or you're not gonna be as productive, and it would have actually been quicker or better or more well done if you would have just taken some time to reflect, calm down, do the things I told you, rest, and then continue and not work excessive hours. That's why it's so important to, you know, pencils down at 5 and then go on to whatever you're doing that's gonna replenish your soul. Don't be constantly overwhelmed. I talked about this as well, but if you constantly feel overwhelmed, that is a sign of burnout. You shouldn't really feel overwhelmed at all. You should always feel like you're capable of doing the role that is assigned to you or that's been given to you. But if you feel overwhelmed every once in a while, I feel like that's healthy, because if we're in our comfort zone, maybe that's just me, but I feel like if we're in our comfort zone, we're not gonna feel overwhelmed, whereas if we're outside of it, we'll feel a little bit more overwhelmed. But if you constantly feel overwhelmed, that's a sign of burnout, and chill out, girly. You're gonna be okay. Start delegating things, talk to your boss. Your boss is there to help you. If they are a good boss and you're working for a good company, they're not gonna be mad at you for saying that you are starting to experience burnout and you need to delegate some things or extend the deadline on some things or talk some things out. Like, most boss, especially in this day and age, are gonna be very understanding. And the last thing that I have, kind of what I wanna end on, I talked about this a little bit as well, is establish your priorities and goals. So make sure that everything that you do aligns with that. Your to-do list, what you're working towards, the overall goal, trajectory of what you're doing, all aligns with your top priorities and your goals. And if it's not a top priority, it can roll over to the next day possibly. There's ways that you can do these things and still be productive and not be burnt out. And I'm sure there's more than what I mentioned, just like I'm sure there's more symptoms than what I mentioned. So I want to make sure that you guys are aware. I also forgot to mention that there is data showing that there's a higher risk factor of getting burnout for women. And I know that most of you guys are female, so I do want to let you know that burnout is more common among us, and it's something that we should be on the lookout for. We should also be looking for in our friends and family, and just be aware of. It's a lot more serious than I feel like everyone acts like. Like, I almost feel like burnout is one of those buzzwords that everyone uses, like, oh, I have burnout, but they don't actually know what it means. They don't know how common it is. It's kind of like with anxiety. Everyone's like, oh, I have anxiety, or oh, I'm depressed, but then they don't know what that actually means. They don't know what that entails. They don't know how long it lasts. They don't know the symptoms behind that. So I wanted to shed some light on it, because I know burnout is something I've struggled with, as well as something I'm still working through. And I wanted you to also know that I'm here for you. The whole community of girlies in that girl and the that girl realm are here for you. And it's really common. It is. It's more common than people realize. So I hope that you enjoyed this video or podcast. I'm still used to doing my YouTube videos. If you want to go ahead and give this a rating or a review, it would mean the absolute world to me. If you leave your Instagram, I will shout you out. It helps out this podcast so much. If you don't mind leaving a like if you're on YouTube, or a follow, subscribe, or whatever word they use on what platform you're on, it would mean the absolute world. I'm not even kidding. I love seeing my community of girlies grow. We are all a community working towards becoming our own version of that girl, whatever it means to you. I hope you guys had an amazing weekend and that you are feeling replenished going into the new week. I hope that you guys took something from this and you learned something, and you're gonna start implementing more ways to reduce burnout into your day-to-day schedule. I love you guys so much, and I hope you have a great morning, evening, or afternoon. I'll see you in my next episode. Bye guys.